And we're back. Happy Friday, and happy Fridays with Fidelman. I'm Cheryl Fidelman, life coach, trauma healer, and writer. And today's topic on Fridays with Fidelman is be a baby. Be a baby, or make no interpretations. Two different titles. I couldn't choose between the two. I thought they were both really catchy phrases, and they're both hitting at the same point that I want to get to, which is the way in which we interpret other people's actions and believe that interpretation as it's the truth, and then relate to the person and the situation through our own interpretation that we made the truth. So it's like living inside of projection. What's going on in their world, what I think is going on in their world, is probably completely accurate. And so I'm going to treat them as if they feel the way that I think they're feeling. I'm going to treat them as if they think what I think that they're thinking. And I'm going to, and the energy and vibe that I'm sending my message out to them with is whatever feeling, whatever pain I'm experiencing, holding the interpretation of them, right? So that may sound kind of convoluted, but for example, I came up with this. I've been thinking about the be a baby thing for a while and sort of developing my thoughts around that. But then it sort of like really hit home today for me because I was having a conversation with somebody, and she said that she asked her daughter to get together. The daughter said something simple like, "I can't, I'm busy." And then the mother interpreted that, well, she must be mad at me. The statement was so blunt. She didn't offer another time for us to hang out. She just said, "I can't hang out." So, number one, she must be mad at me. And number two, if she wanted to make time for me, she would make time for me. And since she's not making time for me, then she doesn't want to hang out with me, or she doesn't want to be with me. And so all those are all the interpretations that she put in her daughter's world. And she's sitting there with the pain and frustration of knowing that her daughter doesn't want to make time for her, right? So that interpretation is like the truth to her in her body. And so all of the reactions and all of the feelings she's having are framed and colored by the interpretation that she's made. And then the future text that she sent to the daughter, right? And the future communication based on that interpretation, the conversation then sort of went off kilter, right? Because, when you interpret somebody and it's inaccurate to them, the way you're interpreting them, they don't feel seen and they don't feel understood. They may not say that literally, like, "You're not seeing me, you're not understanding me." If they're acting as if, I don't exist here. And then the other person's saying, "No, I do see you, I do understand you," and they only think they see you and they understand you because they're believing their interpretation of you. I feel like I just said a lot, and I want the messages to land. So this woman that I was speaking to has had this sort of distance / rivalry with her daughter for a few years now. And I just posed the suggestion and the possibility that potentially one of the things, not the whole thing, but one of the things that's keeping the rift going is the way in which you're interpreting her actions, her words, her texts, voicemails, body language. Now, oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts on this. Now, for a lot of us who had traumatic childhoods, subtle or extreme, reading body language was very important to us. Because, especially for those of us who had mothers or fathers or people in our family who had borderline personality disorder, what they were saying and the energy behind what they're saying and who they were being didn't match. So it was always like, am I in trouble here? Am I wanted here? Am I loved here? Am I accepted here? I really actually can't tell. And so we're constantly trying to assess vocal tone, words, body language, to find where our safe point is, right? So our nervous system is consistently on search for the place where it can regulate. It may not ever find that place, but it's consistently in search of it. So because it's like, what do you call those things? I was going to make what I thought was a funny analogy, but I can't think of the word. You know, you have to like go under ropes and like go through traps to like find the what do you call it? Obstacle course. Okay, I paused the recording to find the phrase that I was looking for. So it's like, you know, when you're a kid, you're going under an obstacle course of energies and languaging and body languaging and watching different people interact. And it's like an obstacle course, you know, searching for that safety zone. And so when we grow up and we become adults, we start to get trapped in that zone as well. Like, what's going on here? What's really happening here? What do they really mean by that? Like, oh, they didn't text me back, or they sent me a blunt text, or they didn't send me back a question or ask them how they're doing. They didn't ask me back. Or, you know, my boss just sent me like a really short request, you know, or directive. What's underneath that? What's the energy behind that? Am I safe here? Do they like me? Did I not like me? Are they mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Right? So it's like, where am I inside of their behavior? And where are they really inside of their behavior? And so we're constantly interpreting it, believing that interpretation as the truth, and then that interpretation molds your next communication. And so I was talking to my friend, and I said, well, you know, maybe try on that interpretation that you're making, that she's mad at you and she just doesn't want to make time for you. Potentially that's not true. And so when I said that, she was like, well, what interpretation do I make? And I said, no interpretation. Make no interpretations. And I'm not saying that your intuition isn't right, or you don't know the people around you. You know, some people say, I know this person really, really well. I know what they're thinking. I know what their intention is. I'm going to suggest just trying on that you actually don't know. And the impetus or the interpretation, the desire to interpret, the belief system that you land in, that you believe your interpretation of them, is actually just moving you away from yourself. Your focus is on them, and you're having your mood and your next move in the situation depend on them. So if we sit in no interpretation, actually what's there to experience is the feeling. Maybe you're heartbroken, maybe you're sad, maybe you're confused. And so when we release the interpretation, we actually have no interpretation, because who knows what's going on in somebody else's world, right? They're a completely different ecosystem. And not only are they a completely different individual ecosystem, but whatever moment they're in it's their ecosystem plus the moment that they're in and all the layers of the moment that they're in their life that is formulating how they're acting and what their mood is and how they're responding and what they're available for. And so if we release interpretation and we have no interpretation, then really what there is to feel. Because my friend said, well, what if, what interpretation do I make if the interpretation if I'm making isn't true? And I said, make no interpretation. She said, well, then what do I do? And I said, well, then you feel. You just feel. Because oftentimes an interpretation is moving us away from really just the impact. And it's the feeling and the impact that moves us to make an interpretation. So all we have to do is sit in the impact. Like, oh, whatever that was, I'm feeling off kilter, I'm feeling misplaced, or I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling accepted, I'm feeling seen. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling disappointed, I'm feeling not in relationship, I'm feeling disconnected. And actually, once you sit in the feelings of what's happening rather than your cognitive interpretation, that actually opens your heart in the situation and it doesn't close it. And the next level, or like the next step of sitting in the feeling, releasing any interpretation, right? Because as I've said before many times, the human brain has a hard time actually sitting in not knowing. Like the human brain has to land in the knowing of something, even if the knowing is something that they've made up and fabricated. At least it's something that they feel they know. So we're looking at actually sitting and hanging and not knowing. And what's there to experience if there isn't knowing is feeling. And then once we feel, we realize we don't know, we then can move into curiosity. And that's where the Be a Baby piece comes in this Fridays with Fidelman video. So be a baby. And what is a baby like? A baby is just curious. A baby is like feeling the world and then comes with curiosity. Feels the world and then comes with curiosity. Like just consistent curiosity. And so if you're with somebody and you can say, I'm making this interpretation that you're mad at me. Is that true? Or how are you? How's your day? Instead of, when we interpret someone's mad at us, probably the last thing we're going to do is say, how's your day? Right? So it suppresses our next communication. So we can open ourselves to being curious actually about anything in any moment. And curiosity about the self. Why am I interpreting that I think they're mad at me? Why am I interpreting that like I'm punished right now? That was always my thing forever. I'm punished. They hate me. I'm punished. They hate me. I'm punished. That was always my immediate interpretation for almost like most interactions. And it diminished as time went on. But I remember a time in my life where I just felt like everybody was always mad at me and punishing me. Because that's how I felt with my mom. I just felt like she was always mad at me, and I felt like she was always punishing me for her own life, pretty much. So it was like I was a walking apology for so long. And so once we can sit in how we're feeling, our heart is open, we can then be curious. Not just curious about the other person, because we don't want to always have the other person depicting our experience, but just curious about ourselves. Why am I interpreting right now that I'm like hated and being punished and that I'm in trouble? Why am I interpreting that? Where does that come from? Where does it come from? What does it feel like in my body? I think the other person's mad at me. Why do I think they're mad at me? And why don't I ask them how their day is going? Because sometimes if you ask somebody how their day is going, they'll say, I'm having like a shitty day or whatever. And then you'll have an idea of, what's going on in their world that maybe they were short with you. And maybe they weren't short with you. Maybe they're having a great day and just sent like a quick text. In other words, interpretation and believing our interpretation creates disconnection. It creates a closed heart. Curiosity creates an open heart. It creates more understanding of your world, and it creates more understanding of their world. Now, another level of curiosity is on the heels of the video I put out a couple weeks ago, which is Olympic level healing practice, right? How long can you stay in curiosity? How long can you stay in curiosity of your world and in curiosity in someone else's world until you land in a thought and an interpretation that you think is true, and you're going to take that thought and interpretation and have it mold your mood and mold how you think it's going for them, right? So you may say something that you feel is so open-hearted and generous to them, and then they may give you like a response that you should think is shitty, and then you close down and then you have a full interpretation of them and yourself in the moment. So how many back and forths in a conversation can you maintain your curiosity? How long in a conversation, in a day, in a relationship, can you be a baby and maintain your curiosity? Like, curiosity is the highest level of healing practice. Curiosity is the highest level of maintaining an open heart, of maintaining love, of maintaining connection, of maintaining understanding of yourself and others, because every single person, including ourselves, wants to be seen and understood. Letting that siren go by. And it begins with us seeing and understanding ourselves. So even with yourself, how long can you be curious until you hit on something that is an interpretation that you believe is actually true, and then you're no longer a baby? You're no longer this clean, pure, innocent slate, but you're tainted in and onto yourself with some belief and interpretation. Okay, thank you for listening. Couple announcements. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I often forget to request. And then also I have a Black Friday special, which I feel like feels a little awkward, like putting a Black Friday special on trauma healing, right? Like, I don't think they sell trauma healing at Target or something like that. But I am in the world of commerce when it comes to trauma healing. So I put together, I just kind of threw in the kitchen sink with my Black Friday special. You have a Codependence Summit, a Trauma Healing Summit, which is, I think, about 34 or 37 interviews altogether, plus a 20% discount on any program you choose, should you choose to do a program, plus a 60-minute session with me where we really dive in deep and start the process of identifying your unique traumatic/default identity. Everybody has their own unique traumatic/default identity that was designed for you and you only when you were a child, and by your childhood, your parents, your guardians, your holding environment. I announced this on the Facebook Live this morning, and which I had a bunch of technical difficulties with, so it was a little clumsy. Next week we'll start again with the Facebook Live, 10 a.m. Pacific, and it will be less technologically clumsy. And I'm going to start on my Facebook Live Fridays. If anybody wants to volunteer to be in the hot seat for a Facebook Live Friday, which means you'll come on with a willingness to share your story, and we'll start the first stages of identifying your traumatic/default identity, and in front of the Facebook group. So you have to be willing to show your face and go fairly deep. All right, everybody, my Black Friday special link is in the email. It's also in the subscription of this video. Go ahead and get your Black Friday special. And I'm actually also working on Black Friday. So, because I'm going away for the Hanukkah Christmas, so I'm here for Thanksgiving. So if anybody wants to spend Black Friday with me and go deep into your traumatic identity. All right, I'm gonna stop just chatting along here. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And life is when? Life is now. Life is now. Happy healing. Bye, everybody.